Welcome back to the Golden State with Mates Postgame Live. I apologize for being nearly 10 minutes late. I had an absolute nightmare trying to connect this microphone, and it took a while, and then that first stream there wasn't working. So we're back in now. Hopefully we can get a few people to join and provide their comments after a hardly believable performance from the Golden State Warriors against the New Orleans Pelicans on Tuesday night. What results as an incredible 124-106 victory. And this is why I just love sport, because the turnaround and the range of emotions that you can get is just, it's out of this world. It's like nothing else that comes in this world, really. Like 2.5 hours ago, this was just a massive disaster waiting to happen for the Warriors. Before the game, a lot of controversy with the decision to remove Jonathan Kuminga from the starting lineup, and that graphic from Shams, which was unbelievable. Like, I just didn't get it. The decision from him and ESPN to go with that graphic, the benched graphic, is unbelievable. Controversy waiting to happen there. Well, I mean, it was controversy in general, taking Kaminga out of the starting lineup, not just in general, but because you've got Stephen Curry, DeAnthony Melton, and Andrew Wiggins all out. Of course, we had Curry and Melton that confirmed out on Monday, and then Wiggins was questionable going into this game. He ends up being ruled out hours before tip. And so for Kaminga to be out of the starting lineup, I mean, there was a lot of doom and gloom surrounding that before the game. And then to start off, you have the first quarter where the Warriors put up 14 points. I think they went 2 of 10 from three-point range. They could not get any offense going whatsoever. And that was hardly a surprise to me, because, you're without Curry, you're without Wiggins, your two leading scorers, your two best offensive players. And then if you went to me after that opening period and said, oh, it's okay, the Warriors are going to win this game by 18 points, I would have said you were joking. I would not have believed that in the slightest after how that first quarter played out. And then Zion Williamson gets an and one to start the second quarter, and the Warriors are down 20. It's 34-14. And you have that combined with the Kaminga stuff going on, and you just wonder, like, what's going on here? And all the positivity from the opening two games and the record-setting winning margin over those first two games against the Trailblazers and the Jazz is just sucked out, really. The positivity is just gone. And yet, within an hour and a half later, 2 hours later, it's returned unbelievably. And there was a few things that really were the difference in this game for Golden State, and were the difference in them being able to get back from a 20-point deficit to win this game by 18, a 38-point turnaround in essentially three quarters, was, again, hardly believable based on the personnel and based on what we saw in that first quarter. But there was a few things that I'll go through. From a team standpoint, the defense. This was, I know people will look at the three-point shooting and look at 21 of 46 from three-point range to end the game, 45.7%. A lot of people will look at that. But the defense, to me, is what ignited this comeback effort. I don't know why, I don't know how, but they just turned up the defensive effort. When I say I don't know why, I don't know how, like, I don't know why they can't play that way from the outset. But it was clear that Steve was like, okay, we need to turn things up defensively, because we, in a half-court setting offensively, cannot get anything going. And so in order to try and ignite the offense, it's got to come from defense. I'll get to a few comments in a second. I'll just outlay a few things that I've got. The defense was just unbelievable from the second quarter onwards. Forced the Pelicans into 22 turnovers for the game. The Warriors had 14 steals, and that's what ignited the offense a little bit in the second quarter. It still wasn't great offense by any means, but it allowed them to get some transition buckets and get some good looks. And the Warriors quickly got themselves back into the game. They put up 33 points in that second quarter, brought it back to a 4-point game at halftime, and then you think, okay, now we're in the game. Right? Now we're in the game. And then the second half, yes, was more about the three-point shooting. The Warriors put up 40 points in the third quarter, another 37 in the fourth quarter, and end up running away with this game unbelievably. Like, I'm still sitting here stunned at how they managed to do that, but rather impressed. Now, the story to this game, I'll get on to Buddy Hield in a second, but the story to this game for me was Lindy Waters III. This is a guy who, 13th man in the rotation. We could see what he could do across the course of preseason, but this was never going to necessarily translate to the regular season because the Warriors are just too deep to start the season, anyway. And he's out of the 12-man rotation. He's the 13th guy on the Warrior roster. And to have the 13th guy come out and be a game changer for you in a game like this just goes to show you how deep the Warriors are. And he was the difference maker for me in the second and third quarters. He came out and changed the game, provided the Warriors with that much needed shooting. And just more than that, just the energy and the activity. Like, you're going to look at the 21 points here. He goes from out of the rotation to playing nearly 31 minutes. He goes 8 of 13 from the floor, 3 of 7 from 3, 21 points, a team high plus 26 in the game. But it's not just that. It's 9 rebounds, 4 assists, a steal, a block. Like, he did everything, right? He was a true game changer for the Warriors and was really the main igniter in getting them back in the game and then building an 8-point lead by the end of the third quarter. He started the second half in place of Buddy Hield, and I actually thought he should have started the game overall. Like, I went into the game thinking I would have started Pods, Lindy Waters, Moody, Kaminga, and Draymond at the 5. Now, Steve, I'll get into the starting lineup soon here, but he instead went to Pods, Buddy Hield, Moody, Draymond, and retained TJD at the 5. Lindy Waters, like, it's unbelievable the fact that the Warriors were able to get him for nothing, basically, in the offseason, and then he can come out and have a performance like this. And then Buddy Hield, just a complete difference in performances from the first and second half. He goes 1 of 8 shooting, 3 points in the first half, and then comes out, has 25 points in the second half, including 19 in the fourth quarter on, I think, a perfect 6 of 6 shooting. Ends up a team high 28 points, 9 of 18 shooting, 7 of 11 from 3-point range. I want to get into some comments here. Game F2P, Warriors top 2 in offense behind the Cavs, top 2 defense behind OKC. Are they the numbers right now? They're top 2 in both. Surely not. But I mean, the defense, again, I think it was I know the Warriors end up putting up 124 points, end up hitting another 21 threes, 45.7% from 3. But I truly think it was the defense that started all this. It was unbelievable, really, over the final 3 quarters. GSW says 7 turnovers for the Warriors. Yeah, I mean, that was impressive. I know it sounds a bit silly to say, but like, Steph can often produce a lot of those turnovers, not only himself, but just in terms of the way he moves. And so I actually think while he's off the floor, you're probably going to see less turnovers. I know that sounds weird because it's Steph Curry and he's the greatest player this franchise has ever had. He's the greatest shooter of all time. I know it sounds weird, but the Warriors might actually have less issues from a turnover aspect without him on the floor. Now, of course, we want him back ASAP. I think the update from Shams is 1 to 2 weeks, so I'd expect him to miss more than just these 2 games against the Pelicans, but we'll wait and see. Gamer F2P, a few more comments here. Cole Anderson had 6 steals. Elite defense, man. Lindy is a pure, consistent shooter. The game versus the Clippers where we needed shooting, Kirk failed us to play Lindy. Reggie Miller shouldn't have mouthed off, but he kind of ignited him in the second half. Yeah, I mean, Buddy was excellent in the second half, just absolutely unbelievable. And yeah, to go for 19 points in that fourth quarter, the Warriors needed him. You know, without Steph, without Wiggins, the Warriors needed Buddy Hield to come alive, and that's exactly what he did in the second half. So full credit to him. But it was really, like, it was not just Buddy. It was again, a team-orientated performance. You talk about Lindy Waters III. I want to talk about Kaminga for a second. If you've got any thoughts on Jonathan Kuminga, let me know. But, man, I like the resilience from JK. The fact that he was able to come out after the benching and perform the way he did, I thought was really positive and a good sign for him going forward because, again, it was pretty controversial, the fact that he was benched. And I also think the fact that Shams had that graphic made it even worse, really. And I'm not sure why they needed to do that, but they did. And for him to come out and perform, it was a bit scratchy early, but I just thought he was really active, and it was his best performance of the season through 4 games. So he ends up finishing with 17 points. I think he had 3 rebounds, 3 assists, couple of steals, a block shot, played over 28 minutes, which again was a season high. So just a really good performance from Jonathan Kuminga off the bench. And it could have gone the other way. I think a lot of us were pretty nervous and pretty anxious about how this was going to go after he moved back to the bench. And for him to respond like he did, I just really liked, again, the activity, the energy that he played with. Some plays in the second half, which I think were really crucial. Like he had a play where he stopped. I don't know if it was Zion or someone else at the rim, and then got the ball in transition, and then found TJD on a lob dunk on the other end. He had a couple of really nice plays, playmaking wise, offensively in the second half, Jonathan Kuminga. So he was, to start the game, it was going to be really nervous and anxious to see how he would go in a bench role after everything. Not that he's just, not just what he's been through in terms of the contract situation in the last few weeks, but more so just his career with the Warriors so far. It's like you get the news that he's coming off the bench. It's like, really, we're still at this point? Like, really, after all we've been through, we're getting to another situation where Jonathan Kuminga's benched? I don't know. I don't know how it's going to play out going forward. And truly, like, this game, as positive as it is, as impressive as it was, it might actually open up more questions than answers, which sounds funny, but like when the Warriors do get healthy, and maybe they'll just not be fully healthy for the rest of the season, and that's fine. Just a few more comments here. Feels like he's been in a slump though, GSW. Is that in reference to Kaminga? Yeah, I think it is, because he then follows up with thought Kerr was smart to bench him. I'm looking at this game, and again, I would have started Kaminga. Like, I know he wants more shooting out there, and I think you could do that by pushing Draymond to the 5. Now, I know Draymond likes to have a big next to him in TJD and or Loon, or maybe it's Slow-Mo or whoever else. Like, I get that. Kaminga ended up playing most of his minutes at small forward anyway. Like, he was usually playing his minutes next to some combination of Draymond, Kyle Anderson, TJD, Loon. Like, he was still playing majority of his minutes at small forward. So I didn't really get that too much. Like, if you're going to bring him off the bench, then he kind of needs to play at the 4. I don't know. I would have thought that, hey, you can create get more shooting by having Draymond play at the 5, Kaminga at the 4, and then have, like, honestly, I would probably, like, if going into tomorrow's game, I would probably go, now, I'm sure Kerr's probably not necessarily going to change a winning combination, but going into tomorrow, I would literally start with Pods, Lindy Waters. I would start over Buddy Hield, then Moody, then Kaminga, then Draymond. Because I think the way they were guarding Zion, like, Draymond was often just playing Zion straight up. And there were a few occasions where there was some help defense and whatnot, and that's fine. But none of that was really, like, I didn't see Trace come across and be a help defender too much on Zion and really impact him too much at the rim. I mean, Zion finishes with 31 points. Him and Ingram go for 61, and, two of the biggest, pieces for them, and really the only two pieces for them. I mean, CJ McCollum was deplorable. You'd be expecting him to try and bounce back tomorrow, but he was really poor, not involved at all. And they didn't really have anything else offensively apart from their two big stars in Ingram and Zion, who played really well. And I think if you're going to play Zion straight up like that, where you've just really got Draymond guarding him, and then, you have some help defense a little bit, but I just don't think TJD was super involved in being that help defender to come over and try and guard Zion. Like, I don't think he was. So if he's not going to do that, then why have him out there? Like, I think you just play Zion straight up with Draymond, see how that matchup works out. Zion goes for 31 and the Warriors still win by 18 in this one. Like, Daniel Tice is also out there, but you can get away. Like, you can get away with Kaminga or Moody, guarding Daniel Tice. Like, it's not Ivica Zubac. It's not Nikola Jokic. It's not Joel Embiid. Like, I think you can get it. So in order to get more shooting out there, Jackson Davis didn't play much in the end anyway. I'm just having a look here. He plays 16 minutes, 55 seconds, 3 points, 2 rebounds, 5 assists. I mean, not much impact from TJD, I wouldn't have thought. So that's what I would do going into tomorrow. Like, Kaminga plays over 28 minutes, and I suppose it's just down to minutes in the end. Like, if he's getting 28 minutes, then whether he's starting or not doesn't really matter. But I honestly think the Warriors' best lineup to start with might be that Pods, Lindy Waters, Moody, Kaminga, Draymond, and then have Buddy Hield playing big minutes off the bench and go from there and see how the game pans out. GSO says, is Wiggins returning next game? He might be back tomorrow. Obviously, these back injuries can be a bit of a lingering concern. Like, I've had a bit of a back/hamstring injury myself over the last couple of weeks and last couple of months, really. Went and saw a doctor about it, and it's a bit of an issue, but it's kind of something you just have to manage moving forward. And I'm not a professional athlete, and these guys are getting much more looked after than what I do and look after themselves much better than I do. But it's something like you don't want to take too lightly and can be an ongoing concern. So I'd be surprised if Wiggins played tomorrow. I think he's going to be questionable. Hopefully he's back and it's just a one-day thing, but I wouldn't be surprised if he also sits. And I know it's early in the season, you still want to rack up wins, but I went into this thinking, okay, with Steph and Melton out, if the Warriors can get one of two, then that's a good performance. Not a good performance, but I think that's reasonable. And so does that put less pressure on them tomorrow? I don't know. Like, obviously you want to win the game, but does winning this game make you a little bit, I don't know, like maybe keep Wiggs out for the second game and not rush to bring him back? Like, if you lost this game, then maybe you think more so about playing Wiggins tomorrow. Like, I know it's early in the season. It shouldn't matter. Like, the guy's either healthy and can play or he's not. And with back injuries, maybe it's the case of seeing how he wakes up tomorrow, because I think that can often be the case. Like, again, I'm not a professional athlete, but, you can have days where you wake up and it feels good and you're good to go. And then other days it's pretty sore and you're not good to go. So it might just be up to that. But it'll be interesting to see. If Wiggins is out, I would honestly go Pods, Lindy Waters, Moody, Kaminga, Draymond. And I don't think Kerr will do that. I think he'll keep TJD next to Draymond. But I think the way they were guarding Zion, I don't think Trace was having too much of an impact defensively. Anything else here? The three-point shooting and turnovers, they were really the difference in the game. The Pelicans made 40% of their threes, but only took 22 attempts. Warriors, had 5 guys go for at least 17 points, obviously led by Hield and Waters. Buddy, we didn't really talk about too much in the fourth quarter, but, he shut them out completely with that 19 points. Unbelievable from him. Kaminga up 17. Moody made a couple of threes late, which boosted him up to 17, 6 of 8 shooting, 5 of 6 from three-point range. Again, a couple of those threes came late. I thought he was solid. I don't think he was overly impactful when the game was necessarily on the line. But still reasonable performance. And then Pods. Pods, I think, is a bit of a talking point from this. I was relatively impressed. He goes 19 points, 3 rebounds, 5 assists, a steal, a couple of blocks. I liked his intensity on defense. I thought his defense was better than what I expected. Finishes at plus 17. The scoring is going to be the big thing for him. So he goes 8 of 18, 3 of 8 from three-point range. And I thought, particularly in the first half, whoa, there's way too much Pods here in terms of, obviously he's going to be the key ball handler and playmaker, I understand that. But just in terms of shot attempts, he and Buddy end up taking the most field goal attempts on the team. And I think going forward, even with Steph out, and with, even if Wiggins is out, I'm not sure Pods should be leading the team in field goal attempts. I don't want that. Like, he should be, I don't know, 4th or 5th. Like, you should have Buddy. Kaminga should certainly be more. I know it comes down to what the defense is giving you, and a lot of these, particularly 3-point attempts for Pods, are pretty wide open. You want him to take those shots. But sometimes I just thought there's a lack of polish there with his scoring. And do you want him to be your leading guy in terms of field goal attempts? I don't think so. But otherwise, I thought it was solid. He only turned the ball. He didn't turn the ball over at all. 5 assists, 0 turnovers, and that again, difference in the game when you've got 7 turnovers to the Pelicans 22. And I think a lot of that has to come down to the Warrior defense. I just thought they were so much more active than what the Pelicans were over those final 3 quarters, and maybe the Pelicans were lulled into a false sense of security a little bit. I think they probably saw that first quarter and thought, you know what, we've got this game under control. The Warriors, they've got nothing going offensively. They're without their 2 best scorers in Steph and Wiggins. Maybe we're just going to steamroll through this game. And credit to the Warriors. They turned things up defensively. It ignited their offense, and then they found a rhythm offensively in the second half and shot brilliantly. And that was the game. It's quite a remarkable performance, really. Anything else here? Draymond was okay. I didn't think it was his best performance. Zion ends up going for 31, but, Draymond plus 15, 7 assists. Thought he bottled up Zion on a few occasions. It was a really interesting battle, and I'm looking forward to seeing it again tomorrow. It's the good thing about the schedule oddity with the back-to-back games. It's, you get to see these two teams twice in a row against each other in a lot of these individual matchups, and I think Zion and Draymond is probably the biggest one of those. Anything else here? TJD, little impact. Be surprised if he plays more than 20 minutes tomorrow. Wouldn't be surprised if he's less than 15. GP2, I thought he was solid. Only played 8 minutes though. Not really his type of game, particularly when McCollum didn't have it going. I mean, Peyton was getting into CJ a little bit in that first half, and honestly probably impacted him a little bit as well on the night overall. But again, if CJ doesn't have it going, you don't necessarily need GP2 out harassing him too much, and hence why he only played 8 minutes. Did score 7 points. Loon, the Kevon Looney turnaround has been excellent. He won one season last year where he was quite poor, but other than that, he was obviously really, really good in 22-23, and I just want to give him full credit for coming out and doing what he's doing so far, because I was nearly calling him done. I thought he was almost done as a key rotation player for this team. As I thought, okay, maybe he's someone can play some fill-in minutes for you here and there. He's going to be a great presence in the locker room and from a leadership standpoint, but he's rejuvenated himself. He has revitalized his career. 4 points, 9 rebounds, 5 offensive, just huge on the glass again. And that was my concern in the offseason. I know I spoke about it before. That was my concern with, losing the weight. Was that going to impact his work on the interior and particularly on the boards where we know he's really strong, but he just has a sense for it, right? He just has a mind for rebounding the ball, and doesn't matter what happens to him physically. He's probably always going to be a pretty good rebounder, good to elite rebounder. So getting those extra shot attempts to the Warriors is really crucial. Couple of assists, couple of steals. He's proven a defense. I didn't really speak about it after the Clippers game, but a couple of those isolation possessions on Harden where he kind of forced Harden into step back threes, and he's proven a defense. He got a couple of steals again tonight where, just really good, really solid play. So credit to him. Kyle Anderson, 0 of 9 from the floor, took 6 3-point attempts. Not what you don't want Kyle Anderson taking 6 3-point attempts. But he ends up a +9 because he had 4 steals himself, also had 4 assists. So impacted the game even though he didn't shoot the ball well. And it's going to be interesting to see what Steve kind of takes from that. Does he see 6 3-point attempts from Kyle Anderson and have a word and say, no, we can't have you doing that? Or does he think, you know what? They're open. We want you to take those open ones. Guys like him and Kaminga and Draymond, you need to keep the defenses honest by taking them. So I don't think Kyle Anderson's ever going to be taking 6 3-point attempts in a game for the rest of the season. But I think if he's open, he's going to have to take some. Maybe you get to 3 or 4 and you haven't made one. You maybe put it away for the night. But let's hope that his shooting can, get back to something. He's making some to start the season. So an off night shooting the ball, airballed a couple, even around the rim, he had a couple of those kind of push shot floaters that he didn't make. So that was disappointing. But otherwise, again, he's so versatile that he can impact the game in other ways and still ended as a +9. Waters, story of the game for mine. And then we saw Beekman, Santos, and Pat Spencer play a couple of minutes at the end. Really good win. Really good win. And again, I just love sport. The fact that this looked like an epic disaster waiting to happen. It was in the midst of an epic disaster, really, at the end of that first quarter when the Warriors found themselves down 20 at the start of the second. Their offense had nothing going. The Kaminga stuff was going to be a major talking point. And now, a few hours later, everything's kind of rosy again. Steph Curry's on the sidelines, which isn't great. We want him back. Same with Wiggs, same with Melton. But the fact you can have these guys play the way they did, the fact you can shoot the ball the way you did even without Steph, the fact you can play defense like this, the fact you can look after the ball. And that's the thing for the Warriors. If they look after the ball and don't turn the ball over at a high rate, they're going to be really hard to beat because they should be like the defense that I'm talking about isn't a surprise. Now, the offense is like the fact they were able to put up 110 points in the final three quarters. Now, that's a surprise without Steph Curry and Andrew Wiggins and Milton for that matter, right? But the defense, they've just got a lot of versatile guys. Like they don't have too many bad defenders. Like I think Buddy's defense on a few occasions, like he gave up that and one to Ingram. Like sometimes he gambles on steals a little bit. Sometimes there's some dumb fouls with him. Like he's trying on defense. I'll give him credit for that, but he's not a great defender. But other than that, like, I mean, who's a bad defender on this team? I mean, Kaminga can get caught up on screens a little bit. Some of his off-ball stuff, he can lose concentration, but athletically, he has all the tools to be a really good defender. We know GP2 is a good defender. Loon's solid. Anderson's solid. Lindy Waters, again, gave up an and one to Ingram in transition there, but that was always going to be a difficult play to stop. Again, got size so he can compete a little bit and tries hard on defense. I loved how on the broadcast, I think it was Reggie pointed out late in that fourth quarter where he missed the corner three and then ran back and got the kind of contested rebound over Tice in transition. Just really worked hard for that. And again, it's not a surprise. It's not luck. I should say it's not luck that, he has a really good game like this because he's clearly putting in the work and he's putting the work out on the floor. Like just the game will reward you. Sport will reward you if you're willing to work hard. And that play there where he misses a corner three but gets back in transition and gets the kind of contested rebound at a crucial time. He deserves to go out and have 21 points when he's also doing stuff like that. So what happens moving forward here? Like Steve already joked about in the press conference, okay, maybe have to play 13 guys now because Lindy Waters. What happens with him? What happens with Kaminga? I think you see a performance like that from JK and you think, okay, well, maybe we do just bring him off the bench and still plays 25 plus minutes. But then like, if we're having that conversation, what happens to him in restricted free agency? Like what contract is he getting? Like you don't want to pay 100 plus million. Like ideally Kaminga shows himself as a starter and a guaranteed starter moving forward and a guy you can wholeheartedly rely on game to game, guaranteed 25, 30 plus minutes a game. And therefore you're willing to give him over $100 million. Without that, you can't really do so. You can't give him the contract that he wants. So there's still a question there. As well as he played, as well as he responded in this game, there's still a question mark there. So, I mean, this team, like you look at a performance like this from Lindy Waters III, who is literally your 13th guy on the roster, and you just think to yourself, this team needs a 3 for 1 or a 4 for 1 trade. Because ideally, like Lindy Waters III should be your 8th or 9th guy, possibly. At minimum, like your 10th. And yet he's the 13th. And he's capable of coming out and having a performance like this where he goes 8 of 13, 21 points, 9 rebounds, 4 assists. Like, that's the thing. It needs to be a 3 for 1 or a 4 for 1 trade. But then who is it? Who do you trade? Like, I often thought it was Loon and Peyton in the offseason. Like, they're the salaries that you combine. But both those guys are playing well. Particularly Loon. Like, Loon has almost, I would say, overtaken TJD again in terms of, like, caliber of center right now, currently. And we've seen that in the minutes. He's played more minutes than TJD over the last 2 games. And so who do you move? Who's the 3? Like, if it's a 3 for 1 or 4 for 1 trade, who's out the door? Because we're still at a situation where everyone's kind of playing well. I know we had that disappointing loss against the Clippers on Sunday, but everyone's still kind of playing well. A couple other comments here. Sorry that I've missed. Bree says, great game. GSW, another comment, says, if I'm Kerr, I'd go with Pods, Moody, Hield, Kaminga, and Dre. In regard to Buddy Hield, I just prefer him in a bench role. I don't know why necessarily, but I think he's just more suited to that. I think at this point of his career, I don't know, there's just something about that for me that makes a bit more sense. And because it works so well over the first 2 games. You see it work so well over the first 2 games. I know it didn't, it wasn't great against the Clippers, 3 of 14 shooting the other day, but it just, to me, it makes more sense to bring him off the bench. I think he's that classic 6-man guy who, still plays 20 plus minutes, puts up a heap of shots. You're kind of your microwave scorer, almost like what the Warriors wanted kind of Jordan Poole to be a little bit. Now, Poole had a bit more stuff playmaking wise and handling the ball, like not necessarily a Buddy Hield type specifically, but yeah, a guy that can come off the bench and get you 20 plus points and be a real difference maker. And I think that's what Buddy Hield is for you. I don't think he's starting even with Melton and Steph out. I know you need the shooting, but actually I'd go to Lindy Waters III, and that's what Steve did in the third quarter. I thought it was the right decision, and Buddy came off the bench and did what he does and had 25 points in the second half and 19 in the fourth quarter and shut the Pelicans out. So does he do that if he starts the third quarter? I don't know. He still might have. Like, things might have turned around anyway. But I don't know. I just see the performances so far, and it just makes sense to me that Buddy Hield would be coming off the bench. And we'll see what Steve does with the starting lineup tomorrow. I'd be surprised if he changes things too much outside of Waters. Like, I think the lineup, assuming Wiggins is out, I think the lineup will probably be Pods, Waters, Moody, Draymond, Trace, with Kaminga and Buddy both coming off the bench. But as I said before, I'd probably have Kaminga instead of TJD. TJD the last couple of games hasn't shown too much impact. And maybe that's a bit of an overreaction from me because he was really good in the first two games. But we'll wait and see what happens. It's not, the Pelicans aren't really a matchup for him unless he's going to have this set role of, okay, whenever Zion's going to the rim, we want you being that help defender. And I just thought like others were doing that, and it wasn't really TJD's role in this game. And therefore, I don't think he had too much impact. And Zion goes for 31 points. 13th man capable of starting shows how crazy the depth is. I know. And in fairness, Steve said that before the Clippers game. He was speaking about Lindy Waters III and said, honestly, I'd be comfortable starting the guy. And it's again goes down to the Warriors need. I mean, you're not going to push, like, you're not going to move heaven and earth to push Lindy Waters from your 13th man to being your 8th or 9th man. But a performance like this, again, shows you that you could make a 3-for-1 or 4-for-1 trade and have Lindy Waters all of a sudden become your 8th or 9th man, and you'd be comfortable in doing so. It's just, who are those guys that are involved in the trade? I don't know. And who can you get in terms of, because, again, ideally it's you move 3 or 4 of you guys and get another star. And therefore, Waters becomes your 8th or 9th man, and you've got more top-end talent around Steph. I just want to quickly mention Draymond's comment today, which I thought was really dumb. Well, not today, but recently in an interview with Young Masuk of ESPN, talking about the Warriors offseason, and was asked about Lauri Markkanen and basically said, we could have been trash with Markkanen. Like, we hadn't seen it, so we don't know how it's going to go. Could have been trash. I admire Draymond consistently backing Mike Dunleavy Jr. in the front office and ownership. I do. I think that's a good quality to have. I admire him for that. But sometimes he takes it too far with silly comments. And I thought that was a silly comment. Like, I can guarantee you the Warriors wouldn't have been trash with Lauri Markkanen. Like, if they were healthy, Lauri Markkanen was going to be a perfect fit for this team. Right now, we can debate all day whether or not the Warriors should have done more to get him and whether they should have been willing to give up pods or whatnot. Like, we can debate that all day. That's up to people's own personal opinion. But to say that the Warriors could have been trash with Lauri Markkanen, I just don't see how that would have been possible. Like, if everyone was healthy, I think he would have just been a perfect fit. JSW says, Markkanen on the Warriors, 50-plus wins. Yeah, like, how could they have been trash? And I want to know, like, what do you mean by trash? Like, because, like, not up to expectations of a deep playoff team. I don't get that comment at all. And I think it's just a case of Draymond backing in the front office and praising them for being patient and not going all in on that move and going over the top with an offer for Markkanen. Like, I admire that from Draymond, but I think you don't need to make a comment like that. You can say you praise and admire Mike for not making, not going all chips in and making a bad deal where you give up too much to a market. And if you want to argue that, that's fine. Don't say, we could have been trash with marketing. That's just not true. Anyway, I'll finish it up there. We're nearly 35 minutes in. Apologies again for the delay and the fact that the mic was not working to begin with. So I apologize For that, if you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel already, that would be greatly appreciated. You can follow me at POK252. That's POK252 on X/Twitter. You can also follow us on Instagram and TikTok, Golden State with Mates, where clips are uploaded daily there. I will probably be back for another live stream, similar time tomorrow. Let's hope for another victory over the Pelicans. Would not be nice to go 4-1 ahead of this 5-game road trip, which starts against the Rockets on Saturday, I believe. Yes, Saturday. And then what's after that? The Pistons, and then that really hard 3-game stretch with the Oklahoma City Thunder, the Boston Celtics, and the Cleveland Cavaliers in no particular order. So that's going to be tough. It'd be really good if the Warriors can go 4-1, which is would be a really good spot to be in. And if you can get back-to-back wins over the Pelicans without Steph and potentially without Andrew Wiggins as well, that would be massive. On that, guys, thank you very much for those of you that tuned into the live stream or rewatching this on YouTube or listening on your podcast feed.